Thank you. Okay. Hi guys, you should be hearing me now. We had some tech issues, but we're back. Yeah, this is being live streamed on YouTube and Facebook. Don't worry, you're not on the site. The camera's up there. They only see this and me. And this here's the mic. So we have some people online as well. So today, like I said, we're going to be talking with, reflecting with St Francis of Assisi. There is a prayer. It's attributed to him. We don't know 100%, but let's say 99% sure that it was he who wrote it. So it's a prayer that's attributed to him. And there is a person in Brazil. His name is Alírio Cerqueira Filho. He is part of the Spiritist Federation of the state of Mato Grosso, so Federação Espírita do Estado de Mato Grosso. He is a participant of that federation. He's been the director of all the doctrinal content and discipline and so on and so forth. And so he wrote quite a few books, and one of them is an entire book talking about this prayer. So we use this book to help us navigate this prayer and see how it can relate to our lives, and we'll go line by line and talk a little bit about it. And we probably won't get through the entire prayer, which is good, because that means that then we're talking and we're conversing and helping one another. So let's read the prayer. So if you don't remember in Portuguese, it's that prayer that starts with Senhor, faça-me instrumento de vossa paz, and so on and so forth. So in English, there are a few translations. I picked this one. It says, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there's hatred, let me sow love. Where there's offense, let me sow pardon. And sow is a word for plantar. Plantar não necessariamente de cavar, mas mais de assim, jogar sementes. Semear. Ah, obrigado. Pronto. Semear significa semear. And where there's discord, let me sow union. Where there's error, let me sow truth. Where there's doubt, let me sow faith. Where there's despair, let me sow hope. And where there's darkness, let me sow your light. Where there's sadness, let me sow joy. O Master, let me not seek as much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, and to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that one receives, it is in self-forgetting that one finds, and it is in pardoning that one is pardoned. It is in dying that one is raised to eternal life. It's a beautiful prayer. And now the question is, who did I think about when I was reading this prayer? I'll explain what I mean. The first section of the prayer, right, had where there's hatred, let me sow love. Where there's despair, where there's darkness, and so on and so forth. The question here is, who or what did I think about in my mind? For example, when I was thinking about where there is hatred, was I thinking about, someone perhaps at work that has a lot of hate in their lives, or was I thinking about a family member? When I read where there is darkness, was I thinking about someone in my family? Was I thinking about someone at work? So I'm trying to get to the reflection that when we were reading all these all these sentences, where there's hatred, offense, error, doubt? Was I thinking about someone else and how I can, help them? Or was I thinking about myself? And that's the whole purpose of this chat today, right? Who did I think about? The reason why we pose this is because usually, I'm not saying everyone, but usually what we tend to do is to think about someone else. It's a lot easier to think about someone else. So, like I said, when you think about where there's hatred and where there's darkness, we usually might think about someone that has harmed us, or someone that we know has a lot of hate, has a lot of discord, and so on and so forth. And the reflection that our leader brings in this book is to do the exact opposite, is to see this prayer as an invitation, as an opportunity for us to find all these within us and bring and sow everything within ourselves. So, where there's hatred within me, let me bring some love to that hate, to the offense, to the discord, to the error, to the doubt. So instead of being something external, where I'm out there trying to fix or to help, let's today bring it backwards, like bring it to us as we go through our chats today, because this invites us to do something that can be really healing for us, which is our own discovery, our own self-awareness. It'll help us reflect and think about us while we're acting. It'll help us understand why we do things the way we do it. And who would have, I guess, proposed us to even start thinking about it this way? If we were to look at Christ, there's a passage in Matthew 11, which is very famous, Matthew 11:28, which is when Jesus invites us to look within and to become apprentices of him. And then I'll tie them together. He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." So, at the start here, he says, "You who are weary and burdened." So this is already an invitation for us to look within. Not to see who out there is weary and burdened and they might be helped. They might get helped with Jesus. The invitation here is to look within and see us, whether or not we are weary and burdened. And then he says, "And I will give you rest." The English translation here loses a little bit of details. And in Portuguese, we have two words to describe different ways or different types of rest. So he says, "I will give you rest," which is a short-term rest, which is a quick rest, alívio. So when we feel weary and burdened, come to Jesus, and then he will give us rest. And then he says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." So here he's inviting us, take my yoke upon you, so take my guidance upon you. And this is the horcrux of the passage, the most important one. Learn from me. This is the one that I want to focus on. So Jesus here, he's inviting us to exercise something that we talked a lot about here at FSS, which is called the apprentice mindset. It's the mindset of us being apprentices, being learners. There's a Buddhist monk called Thich Nhat Hanh, who's from Vietnam. In his life, he always talked about a beginner's mindset, right? It's that mindset that there's always something for us to learn. So we can see the experiences that we go through life, instead of good or bad, regardless of the good or the bad, it's always an opportunity for us to learn. If you think about Socrates, he also talked about this when he said that he realized he was the smartest person around because he realized that there was so much yet for him to learn. He said, I know that there's so much still for me to know, to understand, to learn. Right? So you can see these examples of the importance of having a mindset of an apprentice, of a beginner. And what does that do to us? It humbles our hearts. It makes us more gentle. It kind of puts away our pride. It transforms our pride into humbleness. And that's what opens us up to learning. And which will help us find rest for your souls. So this is rest for your soul. This is a much deeper rest. This is a more permanent. It's not a short-term, I'll leave you like the one above, but this one is finding rest for our souls. It's the one that will help permeate and expand the rest, the rest that we feel. And to end, he says, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Right? And then eventually we'll realize and feel that when we can go with his direction and fully embrace it within our hearts, we'll feel the ease and the burden being lightened. So, again, the whole reason to bring this is to see how Jesus was inviting us to be apprentices, to start to see things a different way, so we could humble our hearts and start learning. The first pass or first attempt to start learning would be to start learning from our own feelings, from our own experiences, like we'll talk about just now. And I gotta say that a lot of what is in this talk is also based on I don't know if you guys know, there's a spirit in there's a medium in Brazil called Divaldo Pereira Franco, who channels a lot of books, who wrote a lot of books through the spirit Joana de Angelis. And she has what we call a psychological series, in a way. There are 16 books. I got 4 of them here, where basically in 16 books she describes a lot of our feelings, of our emotions, how to deal with them, and it's very present, it's very practical. This one is called Conflitos Existenciais, or Existential Conflicts, and this is the one that we'll be using a lot today to talk about the feelings that Francis of Assisi invites us to look at and to transform. So quickly, we're going to split the prayer in 3, and probably we'll only get through the first part. But it's just so we can see how the flow is and how incredibly smart Francis was. These first sentences, right, the first ones that talk about how we are invited, to find these feelings within us and try to transform them. This is what we call the pacification section. So this is where we're looking within to help us pacify our own hearts. As we pacify ourselves, only then can I be available to others, to truly help others. And as I'm truly helping others, this is where we get to the autonomy portion. This is where I start to carve out opportunities in my life to help. Now I'm not only leaving it to fate, but in all my intents and purposes in my life, I look at helping others. So it's a bit of a journey, but you see that it starts with us looking within, so then we can be available to others and make service a lifetime journey for us. And Joana de Angelis always talks about the different levels of conscience, and this is where it comes from, where we see that the first level of conscience happens after the plea or the appeal that the true and sincere apprentice makes to the master. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. So this is an appeal that we make to God to make us an instrument of his peace. So this is, when we say it profoundly and when we feel it, right? It's us truly wanting to become an instrument of his peace. So when we make that appeal, then we, let's say, open ourselves up to looking within. And this again brings us to something that Joanna de Angelis describes in a lot of her books, and we talked about this quite a few times already. And it's a way for us to understand, or it's a very methodical way to help us understand our own feelings and how we deal with them. She says that, in the very core, in our very core, and there's a diagram just to help us understand. In the very core, we are essential, in our essential being, right? In our spirit, we are love. Why? Well, because we were created by God from love, for love, and with love. And in the Genesis, we have that we were created, the image of God. So we are, in our core, in our essence, we are love. That's in the middle there. And then we have things around that through our reincarnations, through our lifetimes, will be chipping away to basically remove. It's like a cloak that we start to remove as we go. So there's two areas here that Joanna wants us to focus on. And this is her talking about our ego, and there's a purpose to all of this when we join it with the prayer. She says there's two faces of our ego. We have, one of them is the evident, and one of them is the masked. And Anna, please help out if I'm losing people. But basically, the evident face of the ego, this is when we have all these egoic feelings, all these ones that Francis described, hatred, discord, darkness, and so on and so forth, impatience, rebelliousness, anxiety, and so on and so forth. These are all egoic feelings, and then we can feel it in two different ways. We can either have it as something that's evident. So, for example, hatred. I am exuding. I'm a very hateful person. I'm acting upon it. I'm showing my rage. This is the evident. Or I have the masked, which what we call it the pseudo love, which is where I still have that hatred within me. I still have that rage, but I present myself as a very kind and loving person. And I think that I am a very loving, kind person until someone, does something to me or pulls the trigger. Then that hate comes up, but I never recognize that is mine. I always say that, I'm feeling this hate because they made me feel it, because they triggered me. I'm okay. I'm a loving person, but they made me feel that hate. So I'm not hate, but they made me. This is the pseudo or the masked one. It's where it's there, but we choose not to see it. We choose not to make it evident.
Or we make excuses too.
Making excuses, exactly. And so,
why is that the outermost layer? I'm just curious. It seems like you present it as if they're different layers of being. Why is that one the outermost layer as opposed to evident?
Because the feeling is there. The pseudo is me ignoring it. So for me to transform that feeling, the first thing that I'm going to have to do is to recognize that it's there.
Okay.
And recognizing that it's there would be, seeing it from an evident piece. So whenever I feel that hatred, is realizing that it's me, making it evident, and then pushing through to transforming it. So that's why we put it the one around it, because to go from pseudo to love, you have to first face it. You have to realize that it's there and it's our own.
And this is what this prayer make us to recognize our self-responsibility and see that your responsibility instead of the others. When you start your your responsibility, what you can do to transfer the work,
Mhm.
what you can do to transfer your day by day, then you're really practicing that
Exactly.
prayer.
Exactly. Thank you, Christian. And we'll see with the prayer exactly that. It's the invitation to look at us, because honestly, that's the only thing we can truly change and truly have control over. So if we were to bring in now the prayer and what Jesus said, Alidio says that for us to become an instrument of peace, the apprentice is invited to pacify our own hearts. And through the decision of where there is hatred, offense, discord, error, doubt, despair, darkness, sadness, within our own self, we can then sow love, pardon, union, truth, faith, hope, light, and joy, starting their journey to learn and to self-transform. So this is where we can spend a little bit of time, because there's a couple things to uncover here. The first one, and hopefully this analogy goes well, but it's something that Alidio uses to try and explain a little bit more about these egoic feelings and these virtues. So this is what they are, right? These are virtues, and those we call egoic feelings. And to remove some of the burden that comes with these words, what Alidio talks about is how all the egoic feelings, we can't really create them. What actually happens is they arise when there's a lack of these virtues. To explain, it's just like comparing darkness with light. Can we create darkness? Is there a machine that we can turn on and create darkness? Well, darkness is not something you can create. Darkness is only happens when we remove light, right? So it's the exact same analogy here. Can we create hatred? Can we create offense, discord? We can't create it. It's there when there is a lack of love, of pardon, of unity. Why do we make this analogy? Because the same way with darkness and light, when we say, I don't like this darkness, I want to get it out of here. Instead of me, grabbing the darkness and pulling it out, what I have to do is simply bring light. Same analogy to this. When I feel hatred in myself, when I feel offense, when I feel rage, and I don't like that feeling, I can't forcefully take that feeling and be like, get out of here. When I'm feeling hate, when I'm feeling sadness, when I'm feeling rage, like, I don't like to feel this. I want you to go away. I want to pull you out of me. That doesn't work because there's nothing for you to grab. The only way to make the hate go away or to make the offense go away is to bring in the virtue. So when I'm feeling hate, the only way to make it go away is to bring love. When I'm feeling offense, the only way to take that offense down is to bring pardon, which is what Francis was telling us. He wasn't saying, let me remove the hatred from the person. No, he was saying, let me sow love. So it's the same way for us.
Can you release it though as a preliminary step? Even if you don't have the wherewithal, the strength to build the love, can you at least let go of the hatred?
And how do you think that happens? Like as you release hatred, do you think it'll just be empty?
Perhaps not, but going back to the prayer, it could be a rest. It could be a space of just release, where there's not necessarily you don't feel really love. Like if we're using ourselves, if this is a self reflection, we don't feel love for ourselves, but we stop feeling hate.
Okay.
We just let it go.
Okay, we'll talk about that exactly. But the point that I wanted to make is, if you think about like a bucket of hate, and let's say you release it, you know, all the hate goes out. The bucket can't be empty. There's always something there. It's like the only way to clean that dark water is to bring clean water in. That's the way to push it out. So in a sense, like, you can't be empty. So as soon as you say release hatred, something else has to take place.
At the same time.
At the same time. So I'll talk a little bit about more, and then we can converse.
This is a
more
process,
about-
right?
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
like, okay, now I don't hate anymore, now
Yes.
I'm full of love. It's
It's a
process
scale.
you-
That's what we'll talk about. Yeah.
It's interesting because this isn't specifically Spiritist, but there's other, I guess, other mediumistic traditions. One of them is the person who actually started the idea of the law of attraction in North America.
Mm-hmm.
She wrote through Spirit. Her name was I think Estelle Hicks or Jerry, and anyways, Jerry Hicks was the husband. But anyways, I think her name was. It might not have been Estelle. That doesn't matter. That's beside the point. She wrote through a spirit called Abraham. That part of it I know. And in this book, they talk about the idea of that very thing, of moving from a place of, we'll use darkness and light, because that was the initial reference, moving from a place of darkness to light. And they said, interestingly enough, there's a practice as an intermediary step while you're moving towards it, of just letting go of the darkness at least, going back to your analogy of the bucket. So it would be, yes, you ultimately want to fill the bucket with something else, but there's a period at which, he said, curiously, incarnate beings seem to have a problem with just filling their life with light. But they can sometimes get away from at least the darkness. And so as an intermediary practice, it was a meditation of just learning to release it. And so to your point, it would be this idea of having a bucket, at least as a transition step, where it's empty. At least empty in the sense where you've created space. Because to your point, you need to be able to fill your bucket, but if there's no space left in the bucket, how are you going to get anything else in there? The bucket's just going to be full. And when you try to put something in it, it's not going to go in there because it's already taken up, all the space is taken up. So they were suggesting that for some people, a helpful step is just working away from the darkness. And if you can't get to the place of light, at least opening up a space inside yourself for there to be an opportunity for light to go in. Because otherwise, you're just going to be constantly wallowing in darkness because you'll never be able to get rid of it.
Okay. I can take that.
I think Victor is the same as the diagram that you showed before, when like our conscious is love, right, in the middle, and then you have around the lack of love. That's what you showed, right? And then you have like pretending that you have love. But this is definitely, the way that I see, this is definitely an evolution. This is definitely like is something better, because you are not going from total lack of love to like a person that's full of love. So you have something between, in the middle.
Yeah.
And then this is when you're starting heavy conscious of, I have love inside of me. I cannot still like show this love, the very
Loving or
way, but I can start to feel okay. I speak in Portuguese too. I think it would be easier. So você pode começar a pensar, ok, não tá muito legal esse comportamento aqui. Você começa a ter consciência de que alguma coisa não tá legal. Enquanto que o início é a total falta de consciência. Você não se importa de não ser uma pessoa que faz mal pro outro.
Sim.
Então eu vejo isso como uma evolução. É uma evolução. Você tá, é mais ou menos similar. I think.
Oh yeah, no, you.
Yeah, it's not just a flip of a switch that you go from full hate to full love, right? There's a whole scale in it.
And I think, Victor, going back like to the light metaphor, like if we're in a complete space of darkness, the light can blind you.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's why it needs to be
Yeah.
something gradual. And if we think about Jesus' example, it took several thousands of years for him to come, and we are still talking about that. What he saw or what he brought over 2,000 years ago. Like, as mankind, we were in such a space of darkness that you're not able to see. So it is indeed a very long and like lots of work. It's a process. The same like with the bucket metaphor, or with like me being filled of hatred and being able to love as Jesus. Like getting two very opposite examples, it takes time.
Yes.
And it's a process. We can't go like that.
Yeah.
I wish we could. It's
Yes,
a
I
lot
know.
of work.
Right? But like the bucket analogy, right? If I have, let's say water that's tainted with dark, with black ink, right? Even if the bucket's full, if I start to bring in clean water, it's not out of the blue that's going to be clean. For the longest time, it'll be gray. But eventually, it will be clean. But it takes a lot. It takes a lot.
I think I was just, because I agree with Attila in what he said, and also with you, Victor. So I was thinking that maybe, like the empty space that you mentioned, for example, like the way that I see it, it might be maybe like the time that you are open to start pouring clean water. So you still have the bucket full, but when you decide, and maybe that's the time that we let it go, like to make it clear is when we start like pouring clean water. So it doesn't mean that it's empty, but it means that you just let it go to start pouring like clean water.
Yes, absolutely. I guess the way I see the releasing it is literally releasing the narrative that hatred is all there is. Let it go, and that is what allows me to then shift my mindset to look at the light. Right? Basically shifting the focus on what isn't, which is hate, to what is, which is light, what's something concrete that I can't control. And I'm not going to spend too much time here because I want to go into the first sentence, but this one that Alita talks about, which is very important, is our decision to change. So asking ourselves the questions, what do I want for my life? Do I want to stay in these egoic feelings? Do I want to stay in that hatred, or am I ready to let it go and shift my attention to something else? There is a very important thing that we need to do, which is the decision. Because when the decision is made, then, only then can I, as I go through life, every experience that I go through, I will be asking myself, can I bring a little bit of love to this situation that's filled with hate? And I'll start to do that in every single activity or opportunity. Because right now, a lot of things that we do is, I'll start feeling love someday, at some point, at some time. Our leader likes to say that there is no someday on the calendar, and there is no sometime on the clock, right? There's today, there is now. We can only make a decision now. We can't make a decision in the past or in the future. And so, what he's saying here is, again, to make a decision so we can apply this in every aspect of our lives. Because right now, probably, most of us were very selective, That person that I don't like, that person that bugs me, with him, I'm going to feel hate and rage. I don't want to transform myself with that person. But on this other situation, it's a lot easier. Okay, this one I'll bring some love. This one is okay. So the cherry picking, that's when we haven't made the decision yet to actually go ahead and transform it. And now I wanted to start this one, that we can then talk more a bit about the analogies here. So first, we've already answered this question. Is it for me? Yes, we understand that it's for me. It is for us, right? Where there is hatred in me, right? Looking within, what are the situations that bring about that hate? Let me sow love. right? In those situations, let me sprinkle some love. And then, and that's what I wanted to bring. It's a bit of a scale. It's not a one. Hatred is one thing and love is another thing, and there's nothing in between. It's a big scale. Because when I say, where there's hatred, I might think, well, that's not for me. Because I can't think of someone that I hate. That's such a strong feeling. Well, but is there anyone or any situation where I feel a little bit of an irritation, anger, resentment, aggressiveness, intolerance, vengeance, cruelty? So these are other ways or other levels of hatred. So we can probably find an example in our lives where we at least feel these, which are not full hatred. They already have a little bit of love, right? It's not full darkness. There's a few beams of light that has gone from hatred to simply an irritation, right? But there's still an opportunity for us to bring some love. And on the other tip of the scale there, on the love side, is there are other levels, if you will, to show love, right? It could be calmness, tenderness, patience, indulgence, tolerance, affection, and so many others. So when we're thinking about someone that we have resentment or a lot of anger, sometimes it's really tough to picture ourselves loving them, right? If it's an enemy, and we think, we're talking here and I need to love that person. Or love, again, is a pretty strong word for us to see or to feel towards an enemy, right? It's a big gap there. So it doesn't truly have to be, love at the end of the scale, right? There's a lot in between. Perhaps is just some patience towards that person, some respect, some tolerance, and so on and so forth. It starts again. It's a transition, right? It's never going from one end to the other. And when we have a bit of a resistance, we know that love is in our core. So through what Spiritism brings to us in the Spirit's book, and in Genesis 2, when it talks about the law of progress, that's the one law that Spiritism brings that's imperative, that it will happen. We can choose how fast or how slow it will happen, but we will progress. So we know for a fact, based on the law of progress, that we will go there. We will get to love. So we know there is that destiny, right? So when we think, for example, about an enemy, about someone that I hate, and we think about what is the future for that person? What is the future for an enemy of mine? The future for that enemy is to become my friend. That is the destiny. There is no denying it, right? It could happen now, or it could happen many lives in the future, but we know that will happen. So why not start today? Not necessarily loving them, especially when the wound, o ferimento, is too raw still, right? But is there a few sprinkles, of patience, of forgiveness that I can start to apply? And that's the scale piece when it comes to every feeling that we talk about. Even when those three circles, you can see it's a scale, it's a transition, right? It's something that's slow. And to the release, I guess, I think my mind, it comes from the fact that, we're trying to like I said, like we talked about before, it's like I want to get rid of this hate. I want to get rid of it. We can't, like we talked about before, because we can't. It's not something that I can just grab it and let it go. So it's like we're fighting with ourselves to make this hate go away. But the fact is, I love how Adele, a singer, she says this in her song. She says, you can't fight fire with fire. So trying to fight your hate, it's like fighting fire with fire. You're trying to, rip apart this hate with fighting, with an aggressive feeling, right? So you're just throwing more wood in the fire. And that, I think, comes to the release portion that you were talking about. It is, instead of trying to force it or to fight it, you're being gentle with it. The minute you're being gentle, the minute you're bringing tolerance, patience, calmness to that hate, that releases it. I guess that's
You're
the
making
way.
a space for the feelings to come, in a sense.
But it's through some patience. Like the release itself is already an expression of your calmness, of your respect, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And ultimately, I think in a lot of ways we're saying maybe even at the very least very similar things,
Mhm.
just using different words to describe them. I guess for me, speaking from the limited experience I have in trying to make myself better, is sometimes I found, even though I may have a goal or an objective to get to all of those virtuous feelings, I just don't feel it as a practical step. Like I can tell myself I want to be calm, I can tell myself I want to be tender, but I ain't feeling any of that right now. I'm feeling a lot of the other stuff, a lot of that resentment and anger over there. But I can at least...
That's the acknowledgement that you have those feelings. That's the start. Because if we're, like, say, like that pseudo-love, the outside ring, like we're not even acknowledging we have those feelings. And no one said it's easy. And I guess like releasing and making space, everyone will have their own strategies, and meditation can be one of them. Like I just like let it go. I don't know what I'm putting there yet, subconsciously, but if you're letting go that hatred, it's because some other feelings are positive feelings or virtues are starting to come. Because you are treating yourself with love when you let go, try to let go of that anger, that what the bad feelings. Because I think anger is the one that we can relate more, like, because we feel like our heart races and stuff like that. But I don't know if that's how I feel when I do meditation. Sometimes I just need to calm my mind, so I'm not feeding on that bad feeling, and then maybe when I don't feel that feeling as aggravated, then I can start feeling, oh yeah, there are other things that I'm putting in there. I don't know, I guess for everyone it would be a different way to deal with it. I don't know if it makes sense. It makes sense for me, but I don't know if it makes sense for everyone else.
No, you're right. Well, just again, speaking from my experience, I think you're right. It's just how practically each individual person may be able to relate. And when going back to that book that I was referencing, I could identify a lot with what they were saying there.
Yeah.
Is that I didn't always find it easy. Like, okay, let's use hatred and love because that's what's up there. Here's hate, here's love. Like okay, the switch. Like I click a switch and it goes over there, right? And I know that would be the goal, but it's like I just can't get there. But what I can get to is I can be like, okay, this is hate. I know this is hate. Mm-hmm. Can I at least internally try to act like, okay, this is the hate here. I can't bring the love, but maybe I can at least say this is hate and put it into context and then just put it over there. So whereas the hate, I know it still exists, but it's not consuming me anymore. And that in and of itself, that's where I'm getting at this idea of space. And that is a preliminary step I found, and this gets back to the idea of, you use the word gentleness, so we could say, okay, well, is that the virtue coming in? That's why I said we're just getting a little caught up in words here. But even if I don't feel that I'm really being gentle, but I've just created some separation from the experience, that to me was already a big success, that I could just do that, you know? And that's why I said as a practical step in moving towards it, I just found that can sometimes be extremely therapeutic, for me at least.
Yeah.
I'm trying to say it in a very, very simple way
Yeah.
that I feel. It's like it has hurt your skin.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes you have the medication to put there.
Yeah.
And the right way we stop there.
Yeah.
Sometimes the first step you say, oh, this is hurting.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes the only thing that you have is the Band-Aid. You put it there and stop to hurt. You don't have the medication to put there.
Mm-hmm.
So there you need to go and see how I treat that hurt that stop forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's there, but you put Band-Aid. So
Mm-hmm.
the feeling, You know, you feel, you don't know how to get, because you don't feel the love, you don't have the medication with you.
Yes.
So then you need to go and learning how you treat that, what I need that, step by step, until you have that medication put there. Some people has right away the medication at home. Some people don't have.
Yes.
But the first step, you put the band-aid. This is the great step, because if you don't put the band-aid, you be open and can be bigger. I think it's the first step is that. Sometimes you don't have the love, but the first you did great, you organize and put the band-aid. And then you love and great because you're going to find that medication for that. This is step by step. This is for let it go. Sometimes it's not let it go, because let it go for me is don't feel anymore. You don't let it go, because it's not external, it's internal. And sometimes it's deep. The only thing that you can put is stop temporary until you have the permanent medication for that. But it's not let it go, because it's still there. You only go. I think it's the very simple way that I can see everything that, because for me, I'm more practical. I can't imagination. No, I'm very direct that I can understand for the simple way, and that I can in advance for that to end it. That's
Thank you.
really no.
Thank you.
I actually think it's like an exercise. So first you need to identify your emotion. So I do hate. I do like. Be true to yourself. You hate. You feel that. But then you grow because you're treating yourself. You're healing yourself. So you're gonna achieve a point where you see some situation that doesn't bother you anymore because you did grow through it. So I think that's the point. Like maybe at the first step, you need to push yourself. You need to make a lot of effort to see it and to realize that you do feel that you don't want to feel it. But then the more you grow, the more you learn, the more you have self-conscious. At some point, you just see that situation and you think like, that doesn't bother me anymore. Like, I just see the same situation with different eyes. So I think it's just how we grow in life. Like it's a mature, maybe step that you achieve at some point. So first a decision, like actually first not a decision. I think first you just feel it, and then you think, and then you make a decision, and then from them you see the situation with different eyes.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's interesting because in this book that talks about this prayer, there's exactly that. He goes step by step on that thing that you just described. It's 5 steps that he describes here. So first he goes through the prayer, and then he describes that process. So maybe in 5 talks we'll get through it all. But absolutely, because you can't just talk about this and leave it out without some reflection and idea of how to do it, right? This is more of the what, but the how is a very important piece, so we can start to apply it, right? So thank you all. We'll certainly get to talk about that. I really appreciate your comments and questions. We're at time and the kids are getting a little anxious there. So so we end in a quick prayer, and then we'll turn the lights off, and then we also offer passes in Portuguese over here. So there'll be someone standing where I am, kind of directing you in and out. If you want passes, then you can come. If you don't, that's fine too. And okay, let's end in a quick prayer then. Let's elevate our thoughts to our Master Jesus, to this soul that has brought us so much love, so much peace, to his disciple Francis of Assisi, for bringing us the enlightenment of how to treat ourselves with kindness, with gentleness, with acceptance. Allowing us to transform. Thank you, Master, for this time together. Thank you for the opportunity of having this group where we can share experiences, learn together, and grow together. May we have your passage, your words, come to me, for you are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. May that be imprinted in our hearts and our souls. May your love surround us today, tomorrow. So be it.